Tonight, we're going to chase that ghost. We're going to travel back to a time when Africa's plains were alive, with a creature so strange, so magnificent, it seemed like a dream. It wasn't quite a zebra. It wasn't quite a horse. It was something in between a magnificent enigma, with a story you've never heard, and a fate that will haunt you long after we finish. So settle in, close your eyes, and let the dust of time settle around you. We're on the trail of the quagga. You're a tracker in the Cape Colony in the early 1800s. The sun is a searing copper coin in a sky the color of faded denim. You trudge across a landscape that feels impossibly vast, a sea of golden grass that ripples and shifts in the heat. It's a land of thorns and scrub of distant flat-topped mountains that look like they've been sliced by a god's knife. You've been following a faint trail for hours, your boots kicking up a fine ochre dust that coats your skin and eyelashes. The air is thick with the scent of wild sage and sun-baked earth, and a quiet stillness hangs over everything, broken only by the chirping of cicadas and the distant cry of a hawk. Then you see it. Not a whole animal at first, but a series of vertical lines like a mirage shimmering in the heat haze. They seem to materialize from the tall grasses, a trick of the light and shadow. But as you draw closer, the illusion resolves into a magnificent, living creature. It's an equine like the horses you know from home, but different. A wild horse of the veld. You blink, trying to make sense of what your eyes are telling you. The front half of the animal, its head, neck, and shoulders, is covered in bold, dark stripes, a pattern so crisp and sharp, it looks like someone has painted it on with a steady hand. The stripes are a deep, chocolatey brown, almost black, against a creamy, reddish-tan coat. But then you get to the middle of its body, and something strange happens. The stripes don't continue. They fade. They grow fainter, becoming thinner, and more widely spaced until they're just soft, ghost-like lines on its flanks. By the time you get to its rump and hind legs, the stripes are gone entirely. It's a solid, warm brown, a single uniform color, that blends seamlessly with the earth. It has a tufted, almost brush-like tail, unlike the long, flowing manes and tails of the horses you know. What are you looking at? You've never seen anything like it. It's a puzzle, a beautiful contradiction. You've heard the local Khoikhoi people call it the quagga, a name that sounds like the very bark of a dog or a sharp-pitched call, a name meant to mimic its unique, high-pitched neigh, a sound you'll soon hear and never forget. This is your first encounter with the creature that will become a legend, a mystery, and a symbol of a loss so profound it still echoes today. This isn't just a zebra that's missing its stripes. It's a distinct species, a kind of equine that stands alone. And you walking through the dusty, sun-scorched grass of a young colony are one of the last people on Earth who will see it like this in its home in the wild before the world truly wakes up to its existence and decides its fate. This animal, this quagga, is not just a pretty face. It's a keystone species, a fundamental part of the ecosystem. It lives in herds, sometimes small family units, sometimes massive gatherings, numbering in the hundreds. They graze alongside wildebeest and ostriches, a veritable buffet for predators like lions and hyenas. You can see their vigilance, their ears swiveling constantly, their heads raised, nostrils flaring as they sniff the air for danger. This is a mainstream historical fact that is often forgotten. The quagga was a huge part of the South African plains ecosystem, shaping the landscape through its grazing habits, just as the bison did in North America. They weren't just decorative. They were essential. As you watch, a quirky tidbit of local lore comes to mind. Some of the early Dutch settlers believed the quagga was a hybrid, half horse, half zebra, a strange chimera born of a horse that had a clandestine affair with a wild zebra stallion. The idea, of course, is biologically absurd, but it speaks to how much this animal defied easy classification. It simply didn't fit into the neat little boxes of horse or zebra that the Europeans were so desperate to create. For a long time, the scientific community was just as confused, and historians still argue whether early descriptions of the quagga actually referred to this specific animal or if the name was used for a variety of different striped equines. The lines were as blurred in the minds of men as they were on the quagga's coat. The quagga stands there, a magnificent creature of flesh and bone, but already a ghost. You don't know it yet, but you're not just observing a wild animal. You're witnessing the last moments of a story that is already beginning to end. The European colonial presence is expanding, and with it comes a set of new rules for the land and its inhabitants. Rules that don't include room for a strange, half-striped horse. The quagga's unique appearance, once a testament to the strange and beautiful diversity of life, would soon become a target, a trophy, a commodity, the beginning of a long, slow goodbye. As you continue to watch the herd of quaggas, you notice the subtle variations in their markings. No two are exactly alike. One might have stripes that extend a little further down its belly, another might have a slightly darker, richer brown coat. It's a subtle tapestry of individuality, a detail that was mostly lost on the people who would soon start to count them only in numbers. You're drawn to a particular female, her foal tucked close to her side. The foal's stripes are a bit fuzzier, not yet as crisp as its mother's, a detail that tugs at your heart. A little life, just beginning in a world that is already turning against it. You feel a pang of something akin to sadness, a premonition that this peaceful scene is more fragile than it appears. The sheer uniqueness of the quagga's coat is what truly captured the imagination of the first European naturalists. They were flummoxed. They had seen zebras, of course, the full-striped Burchell's zebra that roamed further north. They knew horses. But this animal, this quagga, was a puzzle. Was it a separate species, a subspecies, or, as those early settlers believed, a weird hybrid? The great Victorian scientists, with their penchant for classification and their endless desire to put a label on everything, were absolutely baffled. A mainstream historical fact is that the quagga was initially classified as a distinct species, Equus quagga quagga, and later, after its extinction, was reclassified as a subspecies of the plains, zebra, Equus quagga. This shift in scientific understanding is a little like a cosmic shrug, as if the quagga was demoted posthumously. It's a bittersweet thought. You find yourself wondering about the evolutionary reasons for those stripes. Why would an animal only be striped on the front half? The popular theory, the one you've probably heard, is that zebra stripes confuse predators. But if that's the case, why did the quagga's stripes stop halfway? Historians and scientists still argue whether the quagga's fading stripes were an evolutionary stepping stone, a transitional form between striped and unstriped equines, or if the partial pattern served some other now-lost purpose. Maybe it was about camouflage in a specific type of landscape where the front half needed to be disruptive and the back half needed to blend in. Or maybe, and this is the fun thought, it was just a cosmic joke played by nature, a beautiful, quirky mistake that made the quagga special. Perhaps, like a mullet, it was business in the front party in the back. A little light-hearted joke for a grim subject. You see the herd move as one, their tawny backs disappearing into the shimmering distance. They are a perfectly adapted part of this landscape. They graze on the tough, fibrous grasses, their strong teeth grinding away, and they can go for days without water surviving on the dew-soaked vegetation. They have a certain stubborn resilience about them. A quirky tidbit you might not know is that the quagga's gait was famously smooth and easy. Early descriptions mention that they were much easier to ride than a traditional horse or a wild zebra, making them an attractive if difficult target for domestication. There were attempts, of course, but the quagga, like all wild creatures, had a spirit that couldn't be tamed. It's in this moment, as you watch the last of them vanish, that you understand something fundamental. This isn't just a different-looking animal. It's a different kind of animal. Its behavior, its markings, its place in the ecosystem, it's all a unique bundle of traits. To see it as a mere variation of a zebra is to miss the entire point. It's like saying a finch is just a sparrow with a different beak. It's technically true in a broad sense, but it ignores the beautiful, specialized story of its existence. You feel a new appreciation, a fresh wonder, and a creeping sense of dread, because you know what's coming next. You've heard the rumblings. The Boers, the Dutch farmers, are moving further inland, pushing the frontiers of the Cape Colony. They see the vast plains not as a pristine wilderness to be admired, but as a potential source of land of resources and of danger. To them, the quaggas are not magnificent creatures. They are competition for their livestock. They are vermin that graze on the same land they want for their sheep and cattle. They are a food source. They are, in a word, expendable. The story of the quagga's extinction is not a sudden dramatic event. It's a slow-motion tragedy, a gentle descent into non-existence. It starts here with you watching a herd of beautiful animals living their lives completely unaware of the storm clouds gathering on the horizon. The first European encounters with the quagga were not of appreciation, but of utility. You can almost hear the conversation in a distant farmhouse. Did you see that one? It's striped like a zebra, but its hide would make a good saddle. The beautiful, unique markings that so fascinated the naturalist would ultimately be its downfall, making it a highly desirable trophy, a valuable hide. The story of the quagga is a testament to how often beauty can be a curse. The year is 1652. You've just stepped off a ship at the southern tip of Africa, a place that will one day be called the Cape of Good Hope. The air is salty thick with the scent of the sea and the strange, unknown flora of this new continent. You're a Dutch settler, a colonist, one of the first. You and your companions have been sent here by the Dutch East India Company to establish a resupply station for their trading vessels. But as you venture inland, a new world unfolds before you. A world of mountains and endless plains and creatures you could never have imagined. The first time you see a quagga, it's not a solitary, beautiful creature, but a flash of brown and white at the edge of a great dusty herd. They run like the wind, a blur of motion against the golden landscape. You, with your European sensibilities, your neat categories for every animal, are completely lost. Is it a type of wild ass, a bizarrely striped horse? You and your fellow settlers are confused and a little wary. The local Khoikhoi people who have lived alongside these animals for millennia know what they are. They've given it a name that mimics its call, a sharp rattling cry that sounds like quaha or quagga, and you, with a lack of a better idea, adopt it. This is a mainstream historical fact. The name quagga is a direct phonetic borrowing from the Khoikhoi language, a beautiful onomatopoeic word that perfectly captures the sound of the animal. At first, you don't see the quagga as a threat or a commodity. You see it as a curiosity, a part of the wild, untamed landscape that you've been tasked to conquer. You might try to hunt one for sport or for a bit of fresh meat, but it's not an organized effort yet. The quaggas are still so numerous that they seem an inexhaustible resource. A quirky tidbit from this early period is that some settlers believed quagga meat tasted a bit like horse meat, but with a sweeter, gamier flavor. Whether that's true or just a product of a hungry imagination, we'll never know. The quagga was a food source, but not yet a commercial one. You might even try to capture a quagga foal, thinking it could be tamed. You've seen the khoi ride their own small horses, so why not a quagga? But you quickly learn the folly of this idea. Quaggas are wild to their bones. They fight and buck, they kick and bite, their spirit unyielding. Historians still argue whether any quagga was ever successfully domesticated enough to be ridden, or if these stories are just tall tales told around a campfire. It's likely the quagga's wild nature, their instinctual fear of humans, was too strong to be broken. The early interactions are a strange mix of curiosity and indifference. The settlers are more concerned with taming the land for their crops and livestock than they are with the wild animals on it, with the exception of dangerous predators like lions and leopards. The quaggas are for now just part of the scenery. But as the colony grows and the settlers push further inland, that relationship begins to change. The land they need for their farms is the same land the quaggas need to graze. The grasses they want for their sheep and cattle are the same grasses that feed the great quagga herds. It becomes a zero-sum game. You feel a sense of unease, a tightening in your chest, as you think about the inevitable conflict. The quaggas are peaceful herbivores, but they are also stubborn. They follow the ancient paths of their ancestors, the migratory routes passed down through generations. They don't know that these paths now cross over freshly planted fields and fenced-off pastures. You can imagine the frustration of a farmer who wakes up one morning to find 100 quaggas have trampled his crops. It's a conflict born not of malice, but of incompatible ways of life. The colonists' agricultural ambitions and the quaggas' wild existence cannot coexist. The early settlers with their guns and their fences have a decisive advantage. The quaggas with their speed and their herd instincts are no match for this new technological force. The slow disappearance of the quagga begins not with a bang, but with the quiet, inexorable spread of civilization. It starts with a farmer tired of losing his crops taking a pot shot at a stray quagga, then another farmer and another. The isolated incidents slowly turn into a pattern, a quiet, unremarked-upon culling. The quaggas, once a boundless and beautiful part of the landscape, are now seen as a pest, a nuisance to be dealt with. And the stage is set for a much larger, more tragic act. The name quagga takes on a new resonance, a subtle shift in meaning as you push further into the unknown plains of the Cape Colony. It's no longer just the sound an animal makes. It's a label, a classification, and a kind of death sentence. As the 1700s turn into the 1800s, the trickle of Dutch settlers becomes a steady stream and then a flood. They are the trekboers, literally migrant farmers, and their wagons are a slow, steady march of civilization into the wild. Their arrival fundamentally changes everything for the quagga. You, as one of these trekboers, are a pragmatist. You have a family to feed and a farm to establish. You're not thinking about biodiversity or the delicate balance of nature. You're thinking about survival. And from your perspective, the quagga is in the way. It competes with your livestock for water and grazing land. The sheer numbers of them are astonishing. You might see a herd of 100 or more, their striped front ends, a shimmering wall against the horizon. But you don't see beauty. You see a problem. This is a mainstream historical fact. The quagga's primary conflict with humans stemmed from its direct competition with domestic livestock for resources. It wasn't malice so much as a clash of two different worlds, and one of them had guns. So you start to hunt them. But it's not for sport yet, at least not for most. The first quagga you shoot is for meat, a welcome change from the tough, sun-dried beef you've been living on. You discover that the meat is palatable, though gamey. You learn to make biltong, a kind of jerky from their flesh, a vital source of protein for your long, arduous treks. A quirky tidbit from the period is that the fat of the quagga was considered particularly valuable. It was rendered down and used to make soap candles and even a kind of lamp oil. So the quagga's carcass was not just a meal. It was a mini supply depot, a multi-purpose resource in a land where every single thing had to have a use. The hide, of course, is the most coveted part. The beautiful half-striped pelt, once a source of fascination, is now a valuable commodity. You can use it to make bags, shoes, and even a kind of canvas. A hide becomes a kind of currency. You can trade it for coffee sugar or ammunition. The quagga, once a wild king of the plains, is now just a product, a raw material waiting to be harvested. You feel a strange sense of guilt, a flicker of remorse as you skin one of these magnificent animals. Its half-striped coat, once so alive and vibrant in the sun, is now a lifeless pelt on the ground. But the guilt is quickly replaced by the practical realities of your life. Your family needs a new pair of shoes. The quagga hide will provide that. The organized large-scale hunting has not begun yet. It's a slow burn, a gradual escalation. Historians still argue whether the early Trekboers had any inkling that their actions were leading to the extinction of an entire species. It's easy for us, with our modern knowledge of ecology, to look back and condemn them. But at the time, the plains seemed endless. The quagga herds seemed countless. The idea that a few farmers with their relatively primitive rifles could wipe out a species would have been laughable. The concept of extinction was still a relatively new and fringe scientific idea. They weren't wiping out an animal. They were simply taking what the land provided. You look out over the vast, shimmering expanse of the veld. You see 1,000 different lives happening at once: gazelles, bounding a lone hyena, skulking an eagle circling high above. And for a moment you see a small herd of quaggas, their stripes a faint, beautiful pattern against the unending brown of the grass. They are still here. But you also know that your kind is here now, too. And in a land that is only big enough for one of you, the outcome is already tragically predetermined. The quagga gets its name and its new tragic place in the colonial world. The name isn't just a sound anymore. It's a word for a future ghost. And the hunt, which starts slowly, will soon grow into an unstoppable, merciless wave. The initial hunts for meat and hides, those quiet, individual acts you participated in, were just a prelude, a dark, slow-building overture to a much larger, more violent symphony. The year is now moving past the turn of the 19th century, and the trickle of Dutch settlers has become a tide. And with them, they bring a new mindset. The quagga is no longer just a source of food and hides for personal use. It has become something else entirely, a commodity in a growing global market. You're a farmer, a Trekboer, on the fringes of the colony, and the vast plains are your world. You still see the quagga herds, but they are no longer an endless, shimmering sea. You have to ride further and further to find them. The landscape itself is changing. The land is being partitioned, fenced, and cultivated. This is the beginning of the end. The hunt for quaggas, once a sporadic necessity, is now becoming a structured, profitable enterprise. A mainstream historical fact is that the demand for quagga hides in Europe began to increase dramatically in the early 1800s. The hides were prized for their unique beauty and durability, and they were used to make everything from fashionable coats to tough grain sacks. Your personal hunting is now part of a much larger, more destructive economic engine. You might join a hunting party, a group of farmers who band together to bring down a large number of animals. This is not a solitary act anymore. It's a social event with a grim purpose. You saddle up your horse, check your flintlock rifle, and ride out with your neighbors. The goal is no longer a single animal, but a full wagon load of hides. You feel a strange thrill, the adrenaline pumping, but also a growing emptiness. You see the quaggas running their beautiful half-striped bodies a blur of motion, and you raise your rifle. Crack. The sound echoes across the silent vast plains, a violent intrusion on the natural order. A single shot, then another, and another. A quirky tidbit from this period is the sheer number of animals that were being culled. One explorer wrote of seeing a single hunting party return, with over 100 quagga hides, a testament to the ruthless efficiency of these hunts. And what happened to the meat? Much of it was left to rot, a grim feast for the vultures and hyenas. The focus was on the valuable hide, not the sustenance. It was a wasteful, heartbreaking practice that spoke volumes about the new priorities of this land. It wasn't about survival anymore. It was about profit. The quaggas, once so numerous, begin to show the signs of pressure. Their herds grow smaller, their ranges contract. They become warier, more skittish. Their deep-seated instinctual fear of humans growing into a panicked terror. You remember the last time you saw a herd peacefully grazing? It feels like a lifetime ago. Now they're like shadows disappearing the moment you get too close. Historians still argue whether the quagga's population decline was solely due to hunting, or if other factors like the loss of habitat and the spread of livestock diseases played an equally significant role. It's a chicken and egg question, a grim puzzle with no satisfying answer. But what is undeniable is that the human presence, the guns, the fences, and the market for their hides, was the primary catalyst for their disappearance. You find yourself riding across a patch of land that used to be a quagga hotspot. Today it's silent. There are no stripes on the horizon. The only sounds are the wind in the grass and the lowing of your cattle. A cold dread begins to set in a chilling understanding that you are a part of something terrible. You look at the pile of hides on your wagon, the beautiful, tragic pelts, and you feel a strange sense of shame. You are a part of this machine, this relentless engine of destruction, and there is no stopping it. The demand from Europe is insatiable. The money you can get for the hides is too tempting to refuse. The hunt, which began slowly and quietly, is now a runaway train gathering speed and momentum with every passing year. And the quagga, Africa's striped enigma, is on the tracks. The slow burn is over. The hunting, which began as a sporadic effort for subsistence and then a profitable sideline, now escalates into a full-blown slaughter. It's the mid-19th century, and the Cape Colony is expanding its reach with a ferocity that would have seemed unimaginable just 50 years prior. You are no longer just a farmer taking down a stray quagga. You are a participant in a coordinated campaign of eradication. This is the era of the great quagga slaughter. You join a hunting expedition, but this is no small party of neighbors. This is a large, well-organized affair, often funded by merchants in Cape Town, who have an insatiable demand for hides. The goal isn't a dozen pelts. The goal is hundreds. You are a part of a grim machine. Your role is simple: to ride hard, shoot straight, and count your kills. You feel the thrill of the chase, the rush of the wind in your face, but it's a hollow, joyless feeling now. The quaggas run in panic-stricken, smaller herds, their beautiful half-striped forms a frantic blur against the landscape. They are not running from you specifically. They are running from the very concept of humanity, a concept that now means certain death. A mainstream historical fact is that by the 1830s and 1840s, the hunting of quaggas and other plains animals had become a commercial industry, with hides and meat being shipped out of the Cape and sold in Europe. The scale was massive, almost unfathomable today. The methods are cruel and they are effective. You and your fellow hunters use horses to chase down the quaggas until they are exhausted. Then you shoot them at close range. It's not a fair fight. It's a systematic culling. The sound of the gunfire is constant, a brutal chorus that echoes across the veld. You feel your heart sink as you see a mother quagga go down its foal, standing over it confused and terrified. The foal is too small to run away, and you know what will happen to it. A quirky tidbit from these hunts is that the Boers sometimes referred to quaggas as platkop or flathead, an insult meant to imply that the animal was stupid and unworthy of existence. It was a way of dehumanizing, or, in this case, dequaggifying the prey to make the killing easier. It's a chilling reminder of the psychological tricks we use to justify our actions. The plains that were once teeming with life are now littered with carcasses. The air is thick with the scent of blood and decay. Vultures circle overhead in an endless grim gyre. It is a scene of utter devastation. You look around and you feel a profound sense of loss, a gnawing hole in your gut. You and your kind have not just killed a few animals. You have broken a world. The herds of wildebeest and ostriches that once grazed alongside the quaggas are now more solitary, more skittish. The balance has been irrevocably altered. Historians still argue about the precise number of quaggas killed during this period. The records are scattered and incomplete, but the consensus is that it was in the tens of thousands. The sheer scale of the slaughter is horrifying to contemplate. You ride back to your camp, the wagon heavy with hides. You don't feel a sense of triumph or even pride. You feel hollow. You are a small part of a vast destructive force that is sweeping across the continent. You can't stop it. You can't even slow it down. The demands from Europe are too great, the profits too high. The great slaughter of the quaggas is a testament to the destructive power of human greed and the chilling efficiency with which we can erase a species from the face of the earth. You remember the first quagga you ever saw, the one with the perfect clean stripes that faded into a beautiful solid brown. It feels like a dream now. The quaggas you hunt today are different. They are gaunt, terrified, their beauty marred by the panic in their eyes. They are the ghosts of the creatures you once saw, and you know with a chilling certainty that soon there will be no more ghosts to hunt. The great quagga slaughter reaches its grim climax, and the sound of gunfire begins to fade, not because the hunters have stopped, but because there are so few quaggas left to hunt. The year is now nearing the 1870s, and the once endless plains are silent. You ride out not as a hunter for profit, but as a nostalgic old man, and you see nothing. The quaggas are gone. They have been shot, their land has been fenced, and their ancient migration routes have been cut off by the relentless march of civilization. The quaggas that remain are just a handful of stragglers, small, lonely groups of 3 or 4. They are no longer a herd, a community. They are survivors hiding in the most remote, inhospitable corners of their former range. You see one from a distance, its half-striped coat, a tragic, lonely pattern against the vast, empty landscape. It's gaunt, its movements frantic and nervous. It's a ghost, a specter of what was, and you know it won't last long. A mainstream historical fact is that by the 1870s, the quagga was considered extremely rare in the wild. Sightings were few and far between, and the species' existence was now a matter of grim curiosity rather than a common fact of life on the plains. The last wild quaggas are not just battling human hunters. They are also battling the slow, inexorable tide of environmental change. The fences that crisscross the land prevent them from reaching water sources. The encroachment of farms and livestock introduces new diseases that the wild quaggas have no immunity to. You see a sickly-looking quagga, its coat dull, its movements sluggish. It's a heartbreaking sight. A quirky tidbit from this period is that some of the last surviving quaggas were found in the most mountainous and inaccessible regions of the Cape places that the hunters had deemed too difficult to reach. It's a sad thought that the only way to survive was to retreat to the harshest, least desirable parts of their world. The feeling of a species nearing extinction is not a sudden, dramatic event, but a slow, quiet disappearance. It's like watching a candle burn down to its very end. One day you look and the flame is gone. The plains are no longer animated by the strange half-striped equines. The unique high-pitched call that gave the quagga its name is no longer heard. Historians still argue about the exact date of the last wild quagga sighting. The records are murky, often based on anecdotal evidence and hearsay. But what is clear is that sometime in the late 1870s, the last quagga to roam free on the plains of South Africa was hunted down and a species disappeared from its natural habitat forever. You feel a profound sense of emptiness, a hole in the world where the quagga used to be. It's a hole you helped create, a silence you helped to build. You look at your hands, at the wrinkles and sunspots, and you see the grim history of this land reflected in them. The quaggas didn't die with a roar, but with a whimper. Their extinction wasn't a sudden cataclysm, but the slow, agonizing erosion of a species from the face of the earth. You remember the feeling of seeing your very first quagga, that sense of wonder and awe. That feeling has been replaced by a heavy, profound sadness. The world is a little smaller now, a little quieter, a little less beautiful. And the silence where the quagga used to be is a sound that will haunt you for the rest of your days. You look out over the veld, and for a moment you almost see it, the shimmering mirage of a herd of half-striped horses running across the horizon. But it's just a trick of the light, a memory, a ghost. The silence of the veld is broken only by the wind, and you know with a chilling certainty that you're witnessing the slow, agonizing death of a species. The year is now 1878, and the last of the wild quaggas are gone. The last wild quagga was almost certainly shot and killed in this year, and you can't help but imagine its final moments. It was probably a lone male, old and wary, hiding in a remote canyon, its half-striped coat a tragic, lonely pattern against the rocks. The hunter who killed it probably didn't know he was ending a species. He was just a hunter with a rifle and a need for a hide or a meal. This is a mainstream historical fact. The last known wild quagga was killed sometime around 1878, a quiet, unremarked-upon death that went completely unnoticed at the time. But the story of the quagga doesn't end on the plains. The stage shifts from the vast, open veld to the cramped, unnatural confines of a zoo. A handful of quaggas were captured in the wild before the final slaughter, and they became the last hope for their species, a grim and lonely hope indeed. You can almost feel the jarring contrast, the shift from a world of endless space and wild freedom to a world of iron bars and concrete floors. You're now a visitor to a zoo in London or Paris or Amsterdam, and you stand before a cage. Inside, a single quagga paces back and forth, its head held low. Its beautiful half-striped coat is dulled by a lack of sun and dust baths. The vibrant wild spirit you saw on the plains is gone, replaced by a kind of quiet, desperate resignation. Its eyes are sad, its movements listless. It's an exhibit, a curiosity, a living testament to a dying species. People point and stare, whispering about its strange half-striped pattern. They don't know they are looking at one of the last of its kind. They just see a funny-looking zebra. This is a quirky tidbit that is heartbreaking to consider. The last remaining quaggas in captivity were almost certainly profoundly lonely. These are herd animals, social creatures who live and travel in groups. To be alone in a cage surrounded by the strange smells and sounds of a foreign land must have been a form of psychological torture. You can't help but feel a pang of empathy for this lonely animal, a ghost, in a cage, a final, sad ambassador for its lost species. The sad truth is that no one knew how to breed them. The science of genetics was still in its infancy. The zoos were focused on displaying the animals, not on preserving them. They would acquire a male and a female, but the animals were often too stressed, too lonely, too broken to breed. Historians still argue whether a concerted effort to breed the quagga in captivity could have saved it. It's a bitter, unanswerable question, but what is clear is that no such effort was made. The quagga was seen as a strange curiosity, not a precious resource to be saved. The last captive quaggas were a tragic footnote, a grim postscript to a story that had already ended on the plains of South Africa. You look at the lonely animal in the cage and you feel the weight of a monumental failure, a failure not just of science but of humanity. The quagga is gone from the wild, but its final sad chapter is only just beginning. The final chapter of the quagga's story is not a tragedy on a grand scale, but a quiet, heartbreaking drama played out in a single stall. The year is 1883. You are a zookeeper at the Artis Zoo in Amsterdam, a place that ironically is meant to celebrate life, not witness its final moments. And in this zoo there lives a lone quagga mare. She is old, her movements slow, her eyes clouded with the resignation of a long life lived in captivity. She is the last of her kind. You have probably seen her pacing in her enclosure, a ghost of the wild plains she was born on, a ghost of a species that now exists only in memory and in a handful of dusty museum specimens. Her name, if she had one, has been lost to history. She is simply the quagga, the last quagga. This is a mainstream historical fact that is both poignant and chilling. The last known living quagga, a female, died at the Artis Zoo in Amsterdam on August the 12th, 1883. She was the last breath of a species, the final note in a long and tragic song. You can't help but imagine her last moments. She was probably alone, the final silent end of a bloodline that had roamed the earth for millions of years. As a zookeeper, you're not a monster. You care for her. You feed her hay and water. You clean her enclosure. You might even speak to her a soft, soothing voice in the long, quiet hours of the night. But you know with a heavy heart that your efforts are a kind of cosmic futility. There is no hope for her. There is no mate to be found, no population to be rebuilt. She is the end. A quirky tidbit is that there was, for a brief time, a plan to send her to London to be mated with a male Burchell's zebra, in the hopes that they might produce a viable offspring that could be bred back. But the plans never materialized. It was a pipe dream, a fleeting hope, in the face of an impossible reality. You look at her, and you feel a profound sense of sadness. Her half-striped coat, once so vibrant and wild, is now a tragic reminder of what was. The stripes, which once helped to camouflage her in the tall grasses of the veld, now serve no purpose. They are just a pattern of biological detail that has lost all meaning. Historians still argue about the precise cause of her death. Was it old age? An illness? A broken heart? It's a bitter question, a grim mystery that will never be solved. But the truth is, the cause of her death was not important. She was already dead in a way. The species was already extinct. She was just the final footnote. The day she dies, you feel a deep, mournful silence fall over the zoo. The other animals go on with their lives. The lions roar, the monkeys chatter. But you feel a stillness, a quiet emptiness, where the quagga used to be. A species has just winked out of existence, and no one save for a few heartbroken zookeepers and naturalists even noticed. The world keeps turning. The markets in London keep trading quagga hides, a grim and unwitting tribute to a species that is no longer. The sun rises and sets over the veld, but the quagga is no longer there to feel its warmth. The quagga, once a magnificent, vibrant part of a wild world, is now just a memory, a story that you can only tell, and a sorrow you can only feel. And with her death, the final door closes. The final tangible link to a species is gone forever. The last quagga in the world, the lonely mare in the Amsterdam Zoo, died on August 12, 1883. It's a precise date for an imprecise event, a single moment that marked the end of a story that had been unfolding for decades. But the world, for the most part, didn't notice. It didn't make the front page of the newspapers. There were no solemn ceremonies or moments of silence. Life simply went on. The official declaration of the quagga's extinction was a slow, quiet process, a scientific confirmation of a reality that had already taken place. You are a naturalist. In the late 1880s, a quiet scholar who has been following the quagga's grim story for years. You pore over expedition reports, zoo inventories, and museum catalogs, and you're the one who has to confirm the heartbreaking news. This is a mainstream historical fact. The quagga was officially declared extinct in the 1890s, almost a decade after the last individual died. It wasn't a dramatic announcement, but a quiet consensus among the scientific community, a sad agreement that there were no more of these animals left either in the wild or in captivity. The paperwork, the final grim stamp of approval, was just a formality. The quagga had been gone for years. The feeling of making this declaration is a strange mix of professional duty and profound sadness. You are a chronicler of life, a student of the natural world, and your job is to record not just what is, but what was. And in the case of the quagga, you are writing its final tragic obituary. A quirky tidbit from this period is the sheer number of other animals that were being collected and cataloged at the same time. The quagga was just one of many species being lost to the relentless tide of colonialism and expansion. It was a time of immense loss, a dark period in the history of biodiversity, and the quagga's extinction was in a strange way just a statistic. Historians still argue whether the scientific community could have done more to prevent the quagga's extinction. Could they have funded a breeding program? Could they have convinced the colonial governments to protect the animals? It's a bitter, unanswerable question. The prevailing attitude of the time was that the natural world was a resource to be used, not a delicate balance to be protected. Extinction was seen as an inevitable consequence of progress, a grim but necessary price to pay for the expansion of civilization. But the declaration of the quagga's extinction was also a turning point, a quiet wake-up call. It was one of the first times that a species had been so meticulously documented from existence to non-existence. It was a tangible, undeniable proof of what humans were capable of. The quagga became a symbol, a cautionary tale. The story of its disappearance became a grim lesson for future generations of naturalists and conservationists. You feel a profound sense of loss, a heavy weight on your chest. You look at the detailed drawings and notes you've made of the quagga, its unique half-striped coat, its tufted tail, and you know that you will never see a living one. You will never hear its call. You will never see it run free on the plains. All you have are your notes and the memories of the few people who were lucky enough to see it. The quagga, now officially extinct, is no longer a living animal. It is a memory, a ghost. And the grim finality of that realization is a feeling that will stay with you for the rest of your life. The quagga is officially extinct. The last living animal is gone, and the scientific world has made its grim announcement. But the quagga hasn't completely vanished. It lives on, but in a new, strange form. It lives on in museums, in the dusty, silent halls of human memory. You are now a visitor to a great museum, a place filled with the ghosts of the past, and you stand before a single, taxidermied specimen of a quagga. It's a surreal, almost heartbreaking experience. The quagga stands there, a lifeless effigy of a once vibrant animal. Its half-striped coat is faded and a little cracked, the result of a century of exposure to light and dust. Its glass eyes stare blankly ahead, a grim and silent testament to a world that is gone. This is a mainstream historical fact. There are only about 23 known quagga specimens in museums around the world today. Each one is a precious, irreplaceable relic, a grim trophy from a time when the world was a little wilder and a little more beautiful. You can't help but feel a pang of sadness. This is all that's left. A stuffed animal in a glass box. A quirky tidbit is that the very first quagga specimen to be scientifically described and named was a foal that was sent to the British Museum in London. It was a beautiful small creature, and it became the template for all future descriptions. You can't help but think about the grim irony of that. The first time the world truly met a quagga, it was a dead one. The story of its life was told not in the wild, but in a silent, dusty museum hall. You look at the specimen, and you feel a strange mix of emotions. There's a sense of wonder, of course. To see this animal, even in this lifeless form, is to touch a piece of a lost world. But there's also a profound sense of guilt. You are a part of the species that killed this animal. You are a member of the same group that shot and trapped and ultimately extinguished the quagga from the face of the earth. Historians still argue about the ethical implications of collecting these specimens. Were they a necessary part of scientific study, a way to understand the animal before it was gone forever? Or were they just another part of the problem, a commercial enterprise that contributed to the animal's demise? It's a bitter, unanswerable question. But the quagga in the museum is more than just a stuffed animal. It is a time capsule. Its DNA is still there in its cells, a coded message from the past. Its very existence, even in this lifeless form, holds a kind of promise. A promise that its story might not be over. And that leads us to the next most incredible chapter of the quagga's story. The story of its potential return. The story of a new kind of hunt. A hunt not for death, but for life. You look at the specimen, and you feel a small, flickering flame of hope. The quagga, in a way, is still with us. It's a ghost, of course. A ghost in a glass box. But its story, its tragic, beautiful, and heartbreaking story, is not yet over. The final pages are still being written, and the final word has yet to be said. The ghost in the glass box might just be the most important part of the entire story. The quagga is gone. Its name is a sound you can only imagine, its face, a memory you can only see in a glass box. But what if it wasn't? What if a species could be brought back from the brink of extinction? Not by a miracle, but by science. You are now a scientist, a geneticist, a dreamer. The year is 1987, and you're part of a project that sounds like something out of a science fiction novel. It's called the QUAGGA Project, and its goal is to breed back the quagga. This is a mainstream historical fact. The QUAGGA Project was started by a group of South African conservationists and scientists who believed that the quagga was not a separate species, but a subspecies of the plains zebra. This belief, which had been gaining traction in the scientific community, was the key to their audacious plan. They hypothesized that if they could selectively breed plains zebras that had quagga-like characteristics, fewer stripes, a brownish coat, etc., they could, over generations, recreate the quagga. It's a bold and controversial idea, a kind of biological reverse engineering. You feel a sense of excitement, a genuine thrill as you work with the first generation of zebras. You're looking for individuals with less pronounced stripes on their hindquarters, a slightly more reddish-brown coat. It's a meticulous, painstaking process, a kind of slow-motion, artistic collaboration with nature. You're not creating a new animal, you're simply guiding the process, helping the quagga's ghost to re-emerge from within its living relatives. A quirky tidbit from the early days of the project is that many of the initial participants were amateur conservationists, not professional scientists. They were a motley crew of enthusiasts, dreamers, and horse breeders who were driven by a single-minded passion to right a historical wrong. This is not a slick, well-funded scientific project. It's a labor of love, a testament to what a few dedicated people can accomplish. The project started with just a handful of plain zebras, and the odds were stacked against them. Many in the scientific community dismissed the project as a folly, a waste of time and resources. But you persevere. The first foal is born, and you rush to see it. It's not a quagga, of course. It's a zebra, but its stripes are a little fainter on its back, a little more faded on its legs. It's a small victory, a tiny flicker of hope. You feel a new sense of purpose, a renewed energy. This is not about hunting. This is about healing. This is about redemption. Historians still argue whether the Quagga Project is truly recreating the quagga or just creating a new animal that looks like it. It's a deep philosophical question. Is the quagga just a collection of physical traits, or is it something more? Is its DNA enough, or is its wild spirit, its cultural history, its place in the ecosystem gone forever? It's a bitter, unanswerable question. But for you, the answer doesn't matter. You are just happy to be trying. You look at the small foal, and you feel a strange sense of déjà vu. You remember the first quagga you ever saw in your imagination, that perfect half-striped mare. And now you see a small living creature that is a little bit closer to that ideal. The ghost is beginning to take shape. The final chapter of the quagga's story is not a tragedy, but a new, hopeful beginning. The quagga is gone, but it is not forgotten. And in a strange, beautiful way, it is coming back. The Quagga Project. Your quiet, hopeful endeavor is moving forward. It's now the late 1990s, and you are no longer working with just a handful of animals. The herd has grown. You're seeing the results of generations of selective breeding, and it's nothing short of astonishing. The foals are being born with fainter and fainter stripes, their hindquarters a beautiful solid brown. They are still zebras, of course, but they are zebras with a powerful ghost inside them. The quagga is beginning to take shape, to manifest itself in living, breathing flesh. A mainstream historical fact is that in 2005, the Quagga Project announced the birth of a foal named Henry, who was widely considered to be the most quagga-like animal born to date. Henry was a sensation. His birth was reported around the world, a symbol of hope. and a testament to what a handful of dedicated people could accomplish. He had a rich brown coat, a faint pattern of stripes on his neck and shoulders, and a beautiful unstriped rear. He was in a way the living embodiment of the quagga's ghost. You look at Henry and you feel an incredible sense of pride and wonder. He is not a perfect replica, of course. His DNA is still that of a plain zebra, and his coat is not a perfect match for the old museum specimens. But he is close. He is a living, breathing connection to a lost world. A quirky tidbit from the project is that the selective breeding process wasn't as simple as just picking the most quagga-like animals. You had to work with the herd's genetics, ensuring that you didn't create an animal with health problems or a weak constitution. It was a complex and delicate dance, a kind of biological chess game that took decades to play out. Historians still argue whether what you are creating is truly a quagga. The debate is a fascinating one. Is an animal defined by its DNA, its appearance, or its behavior? The animals you are breeding are living in the quagga's old habitat, grazing on the same grasses and living in the same climate. They are in a way reclaiming the quagga's place in the ecosystem. But are they the same animal, or are they a beautiful living monument to what was lost? It's a bitter, unanswerable question. You are a part of a new kind of history, a history of redemption. You are not a hunter, you are a healer. You are not a chronicler of extinction, but a builder of life. You feel a profound sense of purpose, a deep satisfaction that you are a part of a project that is, in a way, righting a historical wrong. The ghost of the quagga, once a tragic memory, is now a living, breathing reality. The quagga's story is not a tragedy, but a beautiful, hopeful circle. And you are a part of that circle. The Quagga Project has been a monumental success, a testament to what a handful of dreamers can accomplish. The animals you and your colleagues have bred, which you affectionately call Rau quaggas, after the project's founder Reinhold Rau, are now a living, breathing population. You stand on the plains of a nature reserve in South Africa, a place that was once part of the quagga's historic range, and you watch a herd of them graze peacefully. Their rich brown coats and faded stripes are a living echo of a lost world. This is a mainstream historical fact. The Quagga Project's animals, known as Rau quaggas, have been released into protected nature reserves in South Africa, where they are thriving and becoming a part of the ecosystem once again. You feel an overwhelming sense of vindication. The critics, the naysayers, the scientists who said it was impossible, they have all been proven wrong. The quagga, in a way, is back. Not a perfect replica, perhaps, but a living, breathing ghost that has been summoned back from the brink of extinction. A quirky tidbit from this phase of the project is that the Rau quaggas are not just visually similar to their extinct counterparts. They are also beginning to exhibit some of the same behaviors. They graze on the same types of grasses, they live in the same kind of social structures, and they are in a strange way relearning how to be quaggas. But the story of the Rau quaggas is not without its controversies. Historians still argue whether what you are creating is truly the quagga. The debate is a fascinating one. Is a species defined solely by its physical appearance, or is there a spiritual, a cultural, a historical component to a species that can never be replicated? The Rau quaggas are genetically still plains zebras. They are a kind of living memorial, a beautiful, powerful testament to what was lost. But are they the same animal that the trek boars hunted to extinction? It's a bitter, unanswerable question. The debate rages on a kind of academic war over the definition of life itself. But you, standing there on the plains watching the animals, don't care about the academic debates. You are a pragmatist. You are a doer. And what you see is life. You see a beautiful, peaceful animal living its life in a place that it was almost erased from. You see a story of redemption, a story of hope, a story of a second chance. The extinction of the quagga was a tragic loss, a dark stain on human history. But the story of the quaggas is a hopeful one, a bright spot in a world that is losing species at an alarming rate. You feel a profound sense of gratitude. You are lucky enough to witness a kind of cosmic magic, a biological resurrection. The quagga's ghost is not just a memory anymore. It is a living, breathing reality, a powerful reminder that even in the face of the greatest losses, there is always hope. The story of the quagga is not just a story of a single species. It is a story about us, a story about our capacity for destruction and our capacity for redemption, and you standing there on the plains are a part of that story. The quagga's story is not a simple one. It's a long, winding road of beauty and tragedy, of greed and redemption. And now, at the end of the road, you are left with its ghost, the quaggas. Those beautiful half-striped animals you helped bring back are a living, breathing testament to what was lost and what can be reclaimed. But they are not the end of the story. They are just the final, most poignant chapter. A mainstream historical fact is that the Quagga project, while a monumental success, is not without its limitations. The quaggas are genetically still a part of the plains zebra family. They are a living, breathing memorial to a lost species, but they are not a perfect replica. The original quagga, that wild, untamed king of the plains, is still gone forever. You look at the herd of quaggas, grazing peacefully, and you feel a profound sense of both triumph and sadness. You have created something beautiful, something powerful, but you have not and cannot bring back the dead. A quirky tidbit from the end of the project is that the quaggas have become a symbol for a new kind of conservation. They are proof that even in the face of the greatest losses, there is always hope. They have inspired a generation of new conservationists and scientists who are working to save other species from the brink of extinction. The quagga, in its death and its rebirth, has become a teacher, a grim but powerful lesson for the future. Historians still argue about the quagga's legacy. Is it a cautionary tale of human greed and short-sightedness, or is it a hopeful story of redemption and scientific ingenuity? It's a bitter, unanswerable question. The truth, as always, is probably somewhere in the middle. The quagga's story is both of these things. It is a story of a tragic loss, but it is also a story of a second chance. You feel the weight of this history, the weight of the hunters who shot the last wild quagga, the weight of the zookeeper who watched the last captive one die, the weight of the scientist who brought its ghost back to life. You are a part of all of them. And in a way, you are the quagga's final storyteller, the one who is left to tell its tale. You stand there as the sun begins to set, and you watch the herd of quaggas disappear into the long, golden shadows of the plains. Their half-striped coats are a last fleeting vision of a lost world. The air grows cool, the sky a deep, bruised purple. The stars begin to flicker on one by one. You close your eyes, and for a moment you can almost hear it. Not the call of the quaggas, but the ghost-like echo of the original quagga's call, a sound that has been silent for over a century. A sound that is both a memory and a prayer. The night is here now. The stars are a shimmering river overhead, and the moon, a sliver of silver, hangs high in the velvet black. The plains are quiet, and the world is at peace. The story of the quagga, a tale of beauty and loss, is now over. The hunters have gone home. The scientists have closed their books. The zoos are empty. All that remains is the whisper of the wind in the grass, a soft, hushed sound that carries the echoes of 1,000 years of life and the quiet grief of a species that is no longer. Close your eyes now. Let the story of the quagga settle into your mind, a final beautiful image of a striped ghost in the pale moonlight. And as you drift off to sleep, remember that even in the silence, a lost story can still be heard. Sweet dreams, sweet dreams.